what finally becomes potable water, because our work is to ensure that there is proper and acceptable ambient water quality. When we talk of ambient water quality, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we are basically saying it's the water naturally occurring in rivers and streams, as well as impoundments such as dams. They should be of a given quality and within given thresholds. That is where we indirectly come in, because we know that if ambient water quality is compromised, it also has a negative impact when those who are charged in the provisioning of potable water, when they try to purify the raw water to make it potable. That's where we indirectly come in, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. So what we will simply do as EMA, we have looked at the issues to do with the water base, unfortunately, and the porous distribution of network and lack of water purification chemicals. Unfortunately, it's beyond our mandate. The second point, arbitrary water disconnections. Again, it's beyond our mandate as EMA. The unprotected sources, proliferation of unregulated boreholes, and over-obstruction of groundwater for both domestic and commercial purposes. Again, it's beyond our mandate. Non-completion of Kunji Dam, beyond our mandate. And then the overlapping roles between EMA and the Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Councils on water resources management, especially raw water management. Again, we do not manage the raw water in the same way as the catchment councils as well as ZINWA does, because the catchment councils, they offer licenses for water abstraction, but for EMA, those licenses are not part of our mandate. But what we simply are charged with is the quality of the ambient water. Non-inclusion of stakeholders in a technical committee, again, is beyond us. And then the non-alignment of water laws in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Probably in a way, because currently we are amending the Environmental Management Act, Chapter 2027, and the bill is at an advanced stage, so that there is proper alignment between Zimbabwe as well as with other acts. So that's a process that is, and Honorable Members. If it is okay with you, Honorable Chair, I seek your indulgence. I will simply give an overview pertaining to the issues that I said are indirect issues that might affect potable water. That is issues to do with the water quality and best sewers that will then affect the water that we find in streams, rivers, and finally for the City of Harare, our abstraction point, which is Lake Chivero, in terms of just the overview, in terms of the water quality, and again the overview pertaining to the wastewater treatment plants under the various local authorities within Harare Metropolitan, which also has a bearing on the ambient water quality, because most of the wastewater treatment plants are not fully functional. And the majority of them, the 5 of them that we're going to highlight, at most at 50% functionality, which means about 47 to 50% of partially treated sewage or raw sewage will then finally find its way into our river network system. So for them, the local authorities to then purify the water, there could be issues. That's where we only come in terms of the relationship of our work with the potable water discussion that we have at hand. So if it is okay with you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, I seek your indulgence so that we
Please proceed.
Thank you. You would allow me to just give Mr. Chikurira to have an overview pertaining to the situation that we have in terms of the wastewater in the city of Harare. Mr. Chikurira, sir.
Thank you so much, Director. Chair. Technology. Okay, thank you so much, Chair. Apologies, the technology apparently is not very cooperative today. But the title of my presentation is looking at environmental pollution in Harare as a threat to a clean, safe, and healthy environment, as well as to potable water supply. Because essentially the primary resource that is used to then to be treated, the primary resource that is treated to provide potable water is the raw water. And as the director alluded to, the responsibility of everyone really is to protect the quality of that water resource by mitigating pollution into water bodies, rivers and dams. So in terms of the presentation outline, I think I've shared a hard copy on slide number 2. I'm just going to give a brief introduction and also give a summary of the overall status of Harare municipal treatment plants. Look at the impacts of raw and partially treated municipal effluent on the environment, and also to look at the interventions by the environmental management agency, and lastly conclude by offering recommendations. So in terms of the introduction, the director, I think, put it quite clearly that in terms of Section 73, all citizens have the right to a clean, safe and healthy environment. And Section 44 of the same Constitution, Chair, obligates the state and all of its organs, including all citizens, that's natural citizens and juristic citizens, to protect, promote, and fulfill this environmental right. We also have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which reiterates that nations need to ensure that there's access to safe water and sanitation for all. So pollution essentially from the city of Harare, which is the primary source of pollution, poses a threat to water quality within the Manyame Catchment area. And such pollution, as the data indicated, increases the cost of water provision, and this diverts funds that could actually be used elsewhere in service provision, particularly in diverting funds that would otherwise be used in potable water supply, as we see later on the presentation. So Harare City has got 6 sewage treatment plants, which include Fell, Crowborough, Edcliffe, Donnybrook, and Marlborough. And the Environmental Management Act provides that any discharge into the environment should be done after pre-treatment of that raw sewer to meet particular effluent standards. So it's a legal requirement, Honorable Chair, that before any discharge goes into the environment, it's adequately pre-treated in these sewage treatment plants to ensure that they meet a minimum standard such that the environment can be able to self-cleanse, can be able to then attend some of the pollution. But you realize that the geography of Harare is such that the discharge points appear to be upstream of the discharge points appear to be upstream of the extraction points. So really, there's a circularity in terms of the cost that is actually put up by the pollution. So when we discharge a lot of effluent with a very poor water quality upstream, we end up then taking that very same water resource and trying to treat it to produce potable water at a very, 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 very high cost. Okay. So in terms of the status of the sewage treatment plants within Harare, I just gave an indication there of the design capacity of each of those plants and the current capacity that they are receiving each day. We find that due to losses in the transmission line of the sewer reticulation system to the treatment plant, these plants are receiving, they're losing quite a lot of the effluent into the environment. And this effluent is of a very, very, very poor water quality. So in terms of the regulations, which is SI 6 of 2007, we find that we classify the effluent into a 4-tier licensing system, depending on the level of hazard that it poses to both human health and the environment. So we've got the blue class, which is regarded as environmentally safe, and we encourage any discharges to meet the blue class requirements. We've got the green, yellow, and the red class. The red being the most hazardous. Anything beyond the red class, Honorable Chair, is not permissible to be discharged into the environment. But you find that all of these plants are discharging effluent that is beyond the red class limit, which is the permissible amount, such that it is polluting a lot of our water resources. That's our surface water resource, as well as our groundwater resource as well. The volumes discharged are very large for these plants. So we've got 125 megaliters per day of partially effluent, which is failing to meet most red class standards. At Krobro, we've got 80 megaliters. Marlborough Ponds, we've got 15 megaliters. At Cliff, 5 megaliters. Of these treatment plants, Honorable Chair, we find is considerably low. We want to have 100% capacity, 100% functional status in the treatment plant. But we find that it's running for Ponds, for instance, is only operating at 53% capacity. So what does this mean in terms of impacts? It means that we've got an aged soil recirculation system, and we've got losses that are going to the environment. And whenever you've got a hazard and interacting with the population, then you've got risk, which is why we've got the proliferation of diseases such as cholera, proliferation of diseases such as typhoid. And now there are also concerns of antimicrobial resistance, because we find residual amounts of antimicrobials, antibiotics in this sewer water, and they're interacting with the human population. So I just thought to give an indication, zeroing in on plain view some of the sewage leakages that are there, some of them covering as much as 0.5 square meters, and some of them being as high as 200 square meters. So really, it really affects the right to clean, safe, and healthy environment, and it really weighs down on us in terms of Section 44 to be able to then implement that obligation of protecting, fulfilling, and promoting environmental rights. So as EMA, what we have done is that we monitor water quality within Harare. We monitor Kwisi River, Ruwa River, Manyame, Nyatsime, Marimba, Split River, Chawaroi. And I've just given an indication, the graphical representation of all the points that we monitor in the river system. So once every month, we go in, we take samples, we then analyze those samples to see whether the quality of the water is impacted, the extent of impaction in terms of the discharge from those sewer treatment plants that I gave an indication to. And we found that we have problematic parameters such as dissolved oxygen, phosphate, and manganese. Dissolved oxygen, Honorable Chair, is the amount of oxygen that you find in water. You need a minimum amount of oxygen to sustain life, aquatic life, that is your fish. I know that right now we're also looking at expanding fisheries as an economic activity. So we need to have a certain level of dissolved oxygen to be able to sustain life. Phosphate levels are indicative of, again, partial treated effluent discharges, but phosphate is a nutrient. And when you've got over-enrichment of a nutrient in the water body, you tend to find that there's an overgrowth of vegetation, or overgrowth of algae, which then builds up to the cost of treatment of the water. Manganese is a heavy metal. It's been linked to health conditions such as Alzheimer's. And you find that if people are exposed to drinking such water, there's the increased incidence of such diseases. So in terms of brief indication, giving us a brief snapshot of where we are, the red line, Honorable Chair, that you see there on the screen is the limit, is the minimum limit. We anticipate to have at least 60% saturation of dissolved oxygen in water to be able to sustain aquatic life for fisheries, for recreational use, and those sort of economic activities. But you find that the average dissolved oxygen, annual dissolved oxygen in Kwisi River, in Marimba River, in Nyatsime River, in Manyame River have all consistently been really below the 60% saturation, save for Manyame River. possibly due to an element of dilution as well. In terms of the phosphate levels, you'd want the phosphate levels to be below the line indicated there. But as you can tell, the level of phosphate is consistently above the limit. So there's over-enrichment of those water bodies. Some data again coming from the first quarter, you find that dissolved oxygen is below the required limit for the first 4 rivers there, which are the Manyame catchment. And also, you look at the phosphate levels for the first quarter, they are consistently above, almost doubling, tripling the permissible limit. Dissolved oxygen for catchments, so that I try to give you a global picture. You find that Manyame is below the 60% saturation rate at 51.30. So why I chose dissolved oxygen specifically phosphates, they give us an indication of raw sewer discharge. Because raw sewer typically has got very high levels of phosphates and chemicals and biological content that then exerts an influence on dissolved oxygen. So if we were to give a pictorial representation of what that means in terms of impact on our chain, that's what it means. It means that you're going to have an overgrowth of vegetation in these water bodies. We can't sustain aquatic life without fisheries. It means that you have to have mechanical mechanisms for removing overgrowth of vegetation should you wish to use that for potable water. So the plate to the left there is Manyame River, and the plate to the right is Lake Chiriano. So we need to really try to put it down to figures, the amounts, what is it costing us as a country. If you look at Harare for potable water supply is using 9 chemicals. If you look at a less polluted environment such as Masvingo, they're using 4 chemicals. And a semi-pristine environment such as Mutare, they're using 2 chemicals. So really, the cost of the pollution is that we end up trying to use more and more chemicals to then treat that water to an appropriate level such that it does not pose a risk to human health. And what is the cost of treatment per 1 kiloliter of water? Because of those 9 chemicals within the city of Harare, we're using 22 cents per kiloliter. And this 22 cents, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have to pay as residents of Harare due to this anomaly of pollution. Comparatively speaking, with other 2 local authorities that are less polluted, Masvingo is using about 4.39 cents per kiloliter, and Mutare is using 0.1 cents per kiloliter. So it means that if we're able to attend to the pollution within the city of Harare, we could basically be able to reduce the number of chemicals that we're using, and number 2, reduce the cost of treating each kiloliter of water. And those funds, possibly valued in sector devolution funds, they can then be, diverted to other critical areas of service provision that the residents also really want. So I spoke to the high water treatment costs, Harare being highly polluted, also high health care costs, carrying outbreaks of waterborne diseases. We've seen Harare being the epicenter of quite a lot of outbreaks of diseases, cholera, typhoid, and I spoke to issues to do with antimicrobial resistance due to interaction with residual antimicrobials in the sewer water. So I just took this media article, the plate to the right, it's an extract from the Herald dated 24 February 2024, and they just extracted a quote there, a carpe diem. Boreholes in 13 residential areas found to have fecal contamination, including drain. So 13 of our residential areas are contaminated with fecal contamination, which is indicative of sewer water interacting with our raw water resource. And this is coming from, I think it was Upper Manyame Catchment area that was actually quoted in this particular article. I can be able to share later on. And monitoring activities that we have done as EMA prior also indicated that 43% of the boreholes in Harare were contaminated by sewer water. So the impacts. I've talked about Harare City Council being the most significant point source impact, but we've got several other non-point sources, agricultural activities, the use of agrochemicals, pesticides, issues to do with fertilizer use, is also contributing significantly to the pollution within Harare. So with the city of Harare, we have got issues to do with no compliance with legal requirements. The director did indicate that Section 57 of the Environmental Management Act outlaws the discharge of untreated effluent into the environment, particularly Section 59 talks to say that if you're operating within the jurisdiction of a local authority, all the sewer that you generate should be diverted to the local authority reticulation system. So the city of Harare has not applied for licenses since 2020. That means the past 4 years or so, they've been operating unlicensed due to them producing effluent that is beyond legal requirements. And they have not been submitting quota reports, which is a self-monitoring mechanism that we then use to look at the quantity and the quality of the effluent that is used, not only for the legal requirement, but also for reporting in terms of UN SDG 6. The Harare City Council has a pending case at the High Court with regards to the issue of illegal discharge points from the environment. So as EMA, we take it upon ourselves to implement the Environmental Management Act and the requirements that are under it. So we find that although we've got the sewer treatment plants, all of the pipe infrastructure is supposed to meet the sewage treatment plant. The sewage treatment plant is supposed to then treat the effluent to an acceptable limit, then discharge either on land or into an aquatic system. But this is not happening. Most of the effluent is actually being lost before it gets to the sewage treatment plant, to the extent that one comic actually made a joke one day to say, no, we may be subject to open defecation in Zimbabwe, where you flush a toilet here, and the material actually comes up 2-3 meters down the sewer reticulation system. So the interventions by EMA being a regulator, as the data indicated, since 2010, the local authority has been received with 20 orders. These are environmental protection orders served in terms of Section 27 Act for them to take remedial actions towards protecting the environment, including the rehabilitation of the sewage treatment infrastructure, attending to illegal sewage base as well. They've been fined 50 tickets for non-compliance with legal requirements, and they've been brought before the courts twice. And you find that even before 2020, they've been summoned to appear before the Environment Management Board. The Environment Management Board has the same authority as the Magistrates Courts to cause a hearing to be conducted into a matter that may have injurious consequences on the environment. So that has been done twice, and they've been convicted, and they've been given a prescription of things to do, some of which are still outstanding, Honorable Chair. So in conclusion, Honorable Chair, I'd just like to indicate that there is circularity between water supply and circulation, and water and sanitation. So whatever happens in sanitation, if there's poor sanitation, it will undoubtedly affect water supply by contamination of the water resource, which will translate to an increased cost of water treatment. And the cost is normally borne by the citizens as well as the government of Zimbabwe. Quite recently, with the biggest declaration of solid waste, the government had to come in and try and pre-sanity in terms of waste management. So poor solid and effluent waste management increase the cost of the supply of potable water. There is therefore a need to revamp also reticulation and treatment infrastructure in Harare to protect both surface and groundwater resources. And the contamination of groundwater may leave residents without a viable solution. Because you find the trend now is that where potable piped water is not available, the alternative is with the use of groundwater, sinking of boreholes. But if 43% of those boreholes are contaminated, what does that mean in terms of the public health risk? So there's really therefore an urgent need to come up with a sustainable financing solution, particularly for the sustain of those plants, and possibly the ring-fencing of funds collected by the local authority for the purpose of sanitation. So, ladies and gentlemen, honorable member, honorable members, Chair, I think that is the end of the presentation. Allow me to hand over back to the director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shkrubina. Mr. Kangata, do you have any addition?
Thank you very much.
You have 2 minutes to allow for the other ones to present.
Great, I'll do that in a minute.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. It's the issue probably just to look at some of the recommendations that we have One is for the local authority or authorities to ring fence funds for refuse collection, waste management, as well as wastewater, so that it's used for those intended purposes. It is also our humble prayer and appeal to this committee, probably when you meet members of the local authorities, if you could probably check if that is being done, because from the EMA side, we see that there are deficiencies, because these three critical issues on refuse collection, waste management, as well as wastewater are taken as peripheral issues, and yet they are key to the issues pertaining to potable water. Once there is once they ring-fence that, it will be much easier for the local authority to do rehabilitation, maintenance, as well as expansion of sewer network and treatment plants. Because currently we see a lot of houses going up, but the expansion of water and wastewater is not commensurate with the expansion that is taking place. There is also a need for the local authorities also to enforce their bylaws, so that they are on top of the situation. So, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, that's as far as we could go as EMA, just to make an inference to our work in the potable water as provided in the petition from Glenview 3, where we felt that we have just to present where we might, there might be areas of convergence of our work and the issues to do with the potable water. Because for Harare, it's very, very tricky, and always it will remain tricky, and we will win the war, because Harare is sitting on the catchment. All the ills that we do on land, because we are up there and we abstract our water downstream. So all the ills that we do on land will finally be mirrored in rivers and streams, where we want to get our water from Lake Chiwero. So it's a vicious circle. It's like a dog biting its own tail. It continues in circles. So we know that this particular esteemed committee will break the impasse, so that we have the proper provision of potable water to all the residents and citizens. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Kangata, the Acting Director General of Environment Management Agency, for that presentation. Mr. Shkurira, for a very elaborate presentation with specific detail and recommendations. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to welcome those that have joined us before I move on to Mrs. Matsaira. Honorable members who've just joined us, if you can just introduce yourselves to the guests who are here this morning.
I'm Honorable Daniel Matiso of Kusha, the West constituency. I'm a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Chuma, Elanda Machamana Labulawai.
Morning, everyone. I'm Donald Mafrenzi, representing Highfield constituency, and a member of the local government committee.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ona Tayewa, representing Epworth South constituency. Epworth South constituency.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me hand over to Mrs. Mataya.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. From the invitation that we got here, we are basically supposed to give a background on the status of the catchment, where Glenview is within our jurisdiction as Upper Manyame. So to just start off, I'll give a background of what Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council is. It's a statutory body that was established by an Act of Parliament, the Water Act of 1998. And our mandate is basically to manage water resources. And when we are saying water resources, we're referring to groundwater and surface water resources. The surface water resources, that is our dams and our rivers. So Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council, Zimbabwe has 47 sub-catchment councils. And we are responsible for managing the upper part of the Manyame River system. And our jurisdiction, it spans from Marondera. Our boundary starts from Marondera grasslands, coming towards Harare. So Marondera grasslands is our responsibility. Melfort, Brumley, Rua, Greater Harare, part of Chiwota, part of Nyabira, up to Norton. Our catchment, like I mentioned, it consists of the greater part of Harare. So it is given that we know Harare, it is the most populated sub-catchment, actually the most populated province. So it has various characteristics. It's more like the economic hub of the country, and it also has a high population, like I said, due to obviously issues of urban to rural migration, and there's also expansion of the city. We keep on expanding, and like I said earlier on, Harare province is the most populated, yet it's also the smallest in size. It has, according to the census of 2022, it recorded about 2.4 million people, and the province is 822 square kilometers. So when there is a high population, automatically that means that there is also high water demand. So you find that in our catchment, there is a lot of groundwater use. Because there is erratic supply, potable water supply from City of Harare, as my other colleagues had earlier on alluded to, it means that people will have to look for alternative sources, because water is a human right, it's a need, you cannot do without water. So everybody starts looking for an alternative, and there are only three options that a person can depend on: either drilling a borehole, digging a shallow well or a deep well, or buying water, of which all the bulk water supplies also get water from underground resources. So, and also just to highlight that according to WHO guidelines, a person needs at least 7.5 liters, a minimum of 7.5 liters per day. So if you are to multiply that together with the population statistics that we have, it will just give you a general idea of the amount of water that our local authorities are supposed to be supplying. But obviously they are failing to meet the demand, hence almost everyone is resorting to groundwater. So I would like to also put it across to everybody that groundwater has played a very, very critical role in augmenting this shortfall of potable water supply, and it's a very important resource that needs sustainable management, and to also ensure there is equitable distribution of the resource. So as a sub-catchment, I also noticed that in one of in the issues that were listed by Combined Resident Association, they mentioned an issue of overlapping of roles with EMA. I actually think, in my opinion, it's actually a good thing for water and environment are one unit. You cannot separate those two. However, maybe what I can just recommend is sort of aligning the laws and probably the ministries, because us as a sub-catchment, we are under the Ministry of Lands and Water, Fisheries and Rural Development, whilst they are under the Ministry of Environment. So maybe there's just need of an alignment and of course data sharing. But our mandate is the same, trying to make sure the water quality is in good state so that people can have access to clean water. So as a sub-catchment, we do a lot of work similar to what Emma does. We are also into water quality monitoring. We collect samples from our boreholes. We collect water quality samples from our dams and rivers, just to check the status of the water resources that the public is depending on. We also have some monitoring boreholes in our catchment to monitor the water levels. Like I said, almost everybody has a borehole or a well. So these resources need also to be monitored. So fortunately, through our Ministry of Lands, we managed to secure some funding from World Bank, and they managed to drill some monitoring boreholes for us in our catchment. So we constantly collect water levels data from these monitoring boreholes. And just to maybe comfort the public, you find that yes, we did have an El Nino-induced drought, and obviously the assumption is when there's a drought, the water table is going down, the dams are not filling up. However, most of our dams managed to fill to capacity, And as we're monitoring our water levels, the water table before the rainfall season, it was ranging around 30 meters below the ground. But as we were collecting our groundwater levels data, you would find that after the rainfall season, our bores managed to recharge and the water levels managed to increase. For example, you find that some parts of, I'll just give an example of Tino area, the water table is, sometimes it ranges just a meter below the ground or 2 meters below the ground. And some of those areas actually have those bulk water supplies will abstract water in bulk. So maybe that's also what we need to look at, that kind of data. We utilize that information to, to construct water supply units from groundwater or from the areas that they have good water table. Also, as a sub-catchment, we will also see there is a need, because it's not everybody who affords to drill a borehole or to get a well. We are also into corporate social responsibility. We've been donating boreholes to vulnerable communities. We've also been working with some donors who are also doing similar projects to donate boreholes to vulnerable communities, those people who cannot afford to drill boreholes. We are also encouraging that, if I'm sure you're aware, most people are drilling. Each and every household, almost every household will be having a borehole. But as a sub-catchment, we are encouraging that people go the direction of drilling one borehole, and it's shared amongst at least 10 to 15 up to 40 households can actually share one borehole, instead of having a scenario of everybody having their own hole. So this is just to ensure sustainability of our groundwater resources. So this is one of the things we have actually been encouraging our water users. And we find that some areas are not really, according to the law, due to bylaws, especially in Harare, distances from sewer lines. When a person drills a borehole, it has to be a certain distance from sewer lines or septic tank in order to minimize issues of pollution resulting in cholera outbreaks. So what we then do is encourage people to drill boreholes from a safer distance from the pollution sources. Then that one borehole is connected to several households. So that's the direction we are also encouraging, instead of each and every person having their own borehole. So in a nutshell, I would like to say that yes, we are having a challenge of a lot of borehole drilling in our catchment, but this resource is playing a critical role in bridging the gap. So we need to protect it and ensure everyone has access to that resource. And then there was an issue of non-alignment of our statutes. I would like to also put it across that our ministry is actually working on revising the Water Act. So we are looking forward to realignment of our statutes. As of challenges concerning groundwater development, maybe the issue that we are mainly having is with the drilling sector. We've been trying to engage them, but they are the ones who actually advise the people, the communities, when they intend to drill boreholes. So we are also facing some challenges of people drilling boreholes at night, others drilling boreholes without permits. And at the end of the day, when a person drills a borehole illegally, that's when you find that there is poor borehole siting. A person sites a borehole right next to a septic tank. Then there are cholera outbreaks, and then the issue comes back to government saying people are falling sick, yet it's also the communities who are not complying with the statutes. So I would also like to encourage people to comply with the regulations. Thank you, Honorable. I think I'm done.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Matsaida. Do you have anyone else from your team who want to make an addition? No. Okay. Thank you for that very clear presentation. Do you have any written submission that you will leave with the committee?
Unfortunately, no, but I can prepare one and then.
Yes, that would be very useful, so that your contribution is properly captured, that we take that into account. Honorable members, that is it. The presentation from the Environmental Management Agency, as well as from the Upper Manyame Catchment Council, on the specific issues of concern that were raised by the Combined Harare Residents Association, specifically concerned about the lack of access of municipal piped water due to reduced quality, and the quality of water also being bad due to pollution and unattended water bursts porous water distribution network and lack of water purification chemicals. Concerned also by the arbitrary water disconnection promoted by 1913 Water Regulation Bylaw, the resorting to unprotected water sources by the population, proliferation of unregulated boreholes, of obstruction of groundwater for both domestic and commercial purposes by residents, non-completion of Kunji Dam, considering that the city has had a water crisis for the past 2 decades. The overlapping of roles between EMA and the Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council on water resources management, that is raw water management, crippling horizontal accountability mechanism, thereby affecting catchment management, non-inclusion of all stakeholders in the technical committee set up by the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development to improve the water supply in the Greater Harare, and the non-alignment of the water laws with the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I think it was mentioned that some of these issues do have a bearing on EMA, some do have a bearing on the Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council, but the majority of them don't. But thanks to EMA, they have had a very elaborate presentation that also shows us, where they could play a part. Let me open the question and answer segment. I'll probably start by asking the question of these boreholes. I think that both parties in the room have a responsibility. Who ultimately has a responsibility for boreholes? Because you mentioned that you must license the boreholes. The drillers must go to EMA to get a certificate for drilling. The local authority also wants to know if you are drilling a borehole, who really is the authority on boreholes?
Okay, I will answer that. So if you are to go through the Water Act, the mandate lies with what are called the Catchment Council. So Zimbabwe has 7 catchment councils, and these catchment councils were further subdivided into sub-catchment councils. So if anyone wants to drill a borehole, they have to go through their respective sub-catchment. Like what I said, we operated in different jurisdictions.
But we now know your jurisdiction, yes, which is from
Marondera
to Norton.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to drill a borehole in Glenview,
yes, they come to Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council because that's their sub-catchment.
So if they come to you, what do you do?
Okay, they need to, first of all, we look at their paperwork. They have to produce a proof of ownership of the property. We also need, obviously, there are fees that are attached to that. And then we give them an application form to complete. After they do that, we then go and check. We do physical inspections on the ground. So really the main concern is on the size of the property, because there are also bylaws, City of Harare bylaws that people need to comply with. I think that's where the confusion comes in. There are bylaws concerning drillable drilling for City of Harare that a person needs to comply with. There are also laws in the Water Act that a person also needs to comply with. So the issue now comes on the size of the stand. Because the bylaws say, at least the City of Harare bylaws, like if they were here, maybe they can correct me, but it says that at least a minimum of 10 meters away from a sewer line or a septic tank. So the size of the property then determines if a person's borehole is going to meet.
If somebody wants to drill a borehole, why do they have to come to you?
If they come to us, Honorable Chair, probably they will be looking for Upper Manyame or any of the sub-country catchment councils, because it's not within our mandate. So there is no need for them to come to us.
But I understand that they get charged. The drillers are getting charged by EMA. They have to pay EMA $80 in order to come and drill a borehole.
I think it's an issue where they have been misfacts. Or where things need to be put right, because in terms of our mandate we have nothing to do in terms of licensing of boreholes.
I just had one borehole drilled not very far from where we are, and we paid $80 to EMA, and that was paid by the drilling company. because they said if Emma finds us drilling, we are in trouble. So we have to get this. Yeah, first from Emma.
That one, Honorable Chair, I'll be happy to probably, if you could, yeah, investigate and probably get a receipt.
Yeah, I do.
If there's ever receipt to that effect.
Let me now ask my.
Thank you.
Said to comment on that, the fee that you're actually mentioning is actually in our statutory instruments for institutions. So I think maybe they need to verify if
Okay.
it was Emma they were referring to or it's us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, but we will certainly share with Mr. Kangata and his team so they can investigate. Let me open this up to honorable members of the committee to comment, ask questions, and ask for clarity. Honorable Chuma.
Yeah, so I think mine is a more general question or comment. It sounds like Emma is saying that most of the areas that were raised today, it's not within their mandate. I was wondering whether, given the expertise that they have to assess the environmental impact of some of the happenings around the water sources and so forth, is it not possible for Emma to generate reports that they can use to advocate for certain activities or certain initiatives to like the condition, the agents, the need for them to be committed because of this potential health hazard that is developing in a certain area? Is that not one of the areas that Emma could help with, generate information, advocate for action so that people don't relax or the situation is deteriorating like that?
Thank you very much, Honorable Kumile.
Thank you very much. The team from Emma has indicated that they have issued several tickets to the state of Harare, and I wanted to ask if these tickets are punitive enough to stop further pollution. And secondly, I think we all agree that the interventions from Emma, most of them, they are on the punitive side. I just want to ask if they have non-punitive measures which they are taking to ensure that there is no further pollution. Lastly, Mr. Chair, I want to ask whose responsibility is it to rehabilitate the water bodies that have already been polluted? Is it the Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council or Emma? And if the responsibility lies with either, I would like to know if there are any actions or steps that they are taking to restore these water bodies to their original state, if it's possible.
Okay, thank you very much. If we can have another question, the last one, then we. Okay, please.
Thank you, Chair. My questions actually are directed to the Upper Manyame Catchment area. The first one is on the issue of contaminated bores in their jurisdiction. Those bores have become an alternative source of water, absent of integrated water. Is there anything that they are doing to decontaminate the bores? If there's anything that can be done in that regard, so that whilst we are working on for the provision of integrated water, people can have an alternative source of water which is clean. Then the second question goes to, it's actually to do with the alignment of water laws to the Constitution. And in her presentation, she mentioned that 47 local sub-catchment areas in Zimbabwe, their main responsibility management of water policies. What are they also doing with regards to the alignment of those laws to the Constitution? Is there anything that they can do to make sure that they also probably push or aid their voice in that discourse? Thank you.
Thank you. If we can have a response, please starting with Mr. Kangata.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and esteemed Honorable members. I will probably start off with the recommendation by Honorable Chuma for probably us to Chumanzala. Thank you, Honorable. The recommendation from Honorable Chumanzala, probably if we could, as Emma, come up with a detailed study whose recommendations can be taken on board with the people who do the water management. Yes, we are available as Emma, but we have our sister parastatal that is Zinwa. And these are in charge in terms of the Water Act, Chapter 2024, and issues to do with the water bodies and artificial impoundments for the provision of capturing of water falls within their mandate. So they are best placed to take that on board if ever we share the recommendations with them. So that's the response that I can have from that recommendation. It's a fair recommendation. Probably it must, for us to embrace the whole of government and society approach, where as government we need to be sharing information as well as data. The second one was from Honorable Makumela, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the penalties. Unfortunately, as a regulator, penalties, fines, prosecutions are synonymous of a vibrant regulator. Because that's what our purpose of existence, first and foremost, is to regulate, and hence issues to do with fines will not set fines aside. We will keep on fining people so that we are reminding them to do the right thing. And our fines are not very punitive because they only go to level 14, which is $5,000 United States dollars. Not punitive for institutions, because some institutions like the city of Harare, what we've realized, they were, instead of fixing the problem, they were actually planning to pay the fines. They budgeted for the fines. And hence, Honorable Chair, we had to make an urgent application to the High Court so that such issues on environmental pollution within the city of Harare are heard within the High Court. But unfortunately, the case has not been taken with the agency that it so deserves from our own perspective. So it's still within the courts. Well, carrot, we at times, the carrot and stick, the stick, these are the fines and the prosecutions. In terms of the carrots, we engage the local authorities for them to plan properly for the environment. Because at law, all the local authorities are supposed to come up with local environment action plans where they prioritize environmental issues. They also look for partners who then assist them. So we also share with them our recommendations, and it's also up to them to take on board the recommendations as well as the various partnerships that they can forge as local authorities and provide a good service to the citizens of Harare. And then there was another point that was also raised pertaining to the rehabilitation of the water bodies. The rehabilitation could be done jointly, but a sure case of rehabilitation, honorable members and honorable chair, is for the local authority to fix its wastewater treatment plants. Once there is no partially treated or there is raw sewage getting into the water bodies, there will be, with various cycles of the rains, there will be natural dilution. So we'll get natural purification because there will be natural dilution. So we can't clean a water body without fixing the wastewater treatment plants. It will continue being polluted. And one sure case in your various constituencies, if you want to see that the water body is still has fresh water or quality water, is you look at the biodiversity, various forms of life existing. If you have a growth of water weeds, such as water hyacinth, you would know that that water body is full of nutrients, nitrates as well as phosphates. They will then support the growth of weeds. If you have water insects just playing around, I think in Shona they call it nyungururwi, it shows life. And if you have a water body which is full of catfish, miramba, that's a polluted water body. So these are some of just the telltale signs, but the only best way scientifically to clean our water bodies is to starve them of pollution. Should not pollute them. Yes, they could have been polluted in some certain episodes, but with the natural dilution through rains that we receive, the water bodies, they would recover and you will get pristine water once and for all. So that's the catch 22 scenario that we have. You can't go to Chilero and clean. Yes, it's a short-term measure, but the best way is for our Cobra works fairly, the Manyame, to be fixed so that we do not have partially treated or raw sewage getting into the water bodies. And another sure case, honorable members, if you traverse through Zimbabwe, there are certain points where all the rivers that pass through the urban areas are in one way or the other polluted. In Mutare, they get their water from pristine Pungwe, and their potable water is fine, but because of effluent of the affluent, they are polluting communities in Dora River. Around Dora, communities are polluted. Honorable Chuma from Bulawayo, if you go to Bulawayo, they get their water from good sources, but they pollute downstream Umguza. So the communities, if you're going via Victoria Falls, there's a welcome stench. Those, they call it Mazai. The same applies if you go to if you're going Chirundu Road, go to Cold Stream Chinoi, again near Kat. It's the same. So these are the issues that have to be fixed, because most of the wastewater treatment plants in the country are malfunctional. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kangata. Mrs. Matsai, I think there was a question directed to you.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Chair. The question was, what is Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council doing on the issue of contaminated bores? So, first things first, I think I've mentioned this before. If the public could ensure that they come and apply for permits to drill boreholes, because that's where all these issues start from. If you don't come to your respective sub-catchment council to get the correct guidelines in terms of your borehole siting, distances from pollution sources, that's when people then miss it. The illegal borehole drilling, they are now siting close to sewer tanks and septic tanks. So we are encouraging people to, first of all, comply with the laws, do proper siting of your borehole. And then secondly, some these boreholes that we've recorded, they can actually be treated. We actually work with various laboratories that have measures to treat this water on site. So that's another means. If you have failed to properly site your borehole and it's contaminated, you can then go to the level of making sure you get an on-site treatment facility on your property. Then lastly, when the situation is very bad, as a sub-catchment council, we then go to the extent of actually decommissioning that borehole. Some of the boreholes are then not really suitable for use at all.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what I mentioned.
Thank you very much. It is my understanding that the local authority charges for any borehole installation within Harare, a monthly fee for that. What is the justification from the sub-catchment point of view? And then secondly, and this question is for both Emma and the Upper Manyame sub-catchment area, they also have been concerned on the impacts of the various construction developments on wetlands. and that there are some of the causes of the difficulties that Rwanda residents are facing in terms of supply of clean water or even the availability of water. What is the role of both institutions in perhaps limiting or supervising the urban expansions, some of which are now impacting on these wetlands, which have an impact on the water supply? Okay, that's one. Anyone else? Honorable Nyakwezo.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is directed to both EMA and the Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council. EMA tanzwa mchiti mimi ma-chemicals anoshandiswa kuHarare, they are using at least 9 chemicals, and the Kwamtare 3 chemicals, Maswipo, you say two chemicals, and the Harare mukati mimi ndo mune pollution yakanyanyisa kupfuura dzimwe mbiri. Then wekumanyami Sub-Catchment Council matinobata zveHarare, asi zvibhorani zvenyu zvamunoti zvicherwe, zvimwe zvacho zviri kunzi zviri contaminated. Saka mubvunzo wangu uri kuti mungaite sei both EMA Manyame Sub-Catchment Council kuti vanhu vedu vakwanise kuwana mvura yakachena? Mune here nzira dzamuri kuita dzekudisseminata information to the residents? Nekuti apa tanzwa kungoti tinoda mari bhoo richerwe, moenda zvekuEMA muti tinoda zvakati, taendesa taita pa mafaini akati City of Harare, taendesa kukoti, vanhu zvongoperera ikoko chete here kumakoti, maresidents achiwana mvura yakasviba. Imimi semaorganizations mairi ari kuda kuti maresidents awane mvura yakachena. Ndeapi mamwe matanho amuri kunoudza maresidents kuti vakwanise kunge vachiwana mvura yakachena besides kusungisana chete? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Yes, Honorable Kombe.
Thank you, Chair. Mine, I think it's just need clarification from Upper Manyame in terms of their relationship with Zinwa. I also understand that when one wants to do a bore, Zinwa also comes in wanting a fee. It doesn't take place in Manyame, or it's to be outside the Upper Manyame catchment. And secondly, I also want to pose a question to EMA. Are they just a regulatory body, or within their mandate, they can also assist struggling local authorities who will be failing, probably due to their capacity in meeting the requirements in terms of pollution? Do they have that within them? And then lastly, also in the event that people have built on wetlands, what does EMA do? Do they enforce it on the local authority or on the beneficiary who have built his house or a house on the wetland?
Thank you very much. Second last question, Honorable Chuma from Bulawayo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I beg your pardon on my lateness. I might actually then
be asking things that could have been explained, but if they indulge me. I want to ask both organizations to say, right, as a member of parliament, I am going to the constituency to explain to people, organizations whatsoever. Could you please put it to me how I should justify the payments that you people demand from people? Like if you want to drill a bore, payments are needed by Zima, they are needed by the chairman actually came up with that EMA also is demanding payment. Payment is being demanded for all. So I want you to equip me as the person who interacts with those people to be able to defend you. There's so much needed for this and that. I might be able to say, yes, no, it's okay, you can pay it because of ABC, because they know at times they don't understand why you are paying so much. Because your organizations probably do the same things. You know, the Manyame catchment areas, whatever, you're all doing the same thing, but you all need separate payments. So please quote me on that. But then secondly, let's suppose you found that there's contamination of water and stuff like that. Who is supposed to pay? The people or your organization is seeing that you already collect fees and penalties for infringements that are done. So who then is supposed to pay when you are going to do the test? Like if you are going to call, I remember Madam here said that there are people that can actually come and purify the water and all the kind of stuff. So at whose cost? The user or you people as catchment authority or EMA or Zina or whichever it is. I think you say
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chuma. I think this was our last round of questions. Is there any honorable member who has a question that's burning? Oh yes. Well, very active, very peaceful.
Thank you, Chair. From the presentation that was made by Emma, was the biggest culprit here is the city of Harare. And from the presentation that was made by Emma, it is apparent that the relationship between Emma and the city of Harare is sound. The court cases, the fights and everything. But I also want to direct my question then to the upper Manyame catchment area. For us to be able to solve this problem, we need to understand what is the nature of the relationship between upper Manyame catchment area and the city of Harare with regards to water supply and management in the city of Harare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was our last question. Let's start with Mrs. Matsai.
Thank you very much. Your first question, say, was what's our opinion on City of Harare charging fees is guided by their bylaws. Unfortunately, I'm not so well versed why they charge that monitoring fee. But my understanding is they also do some checks because when a person drills a bore, they have to maintain certain distances from their buildings and boundaries. So maybe it's a monitoring fee. I'm not so sure why else they charge that fee, but maybe my recommendation, because it's a bit punitive, is quite high. I think I checked, there's a bylaw that I was looking at, some of it was charging about $100 US. So maybe my recommendation is if it could just be reduced because it's too high, the fee is too high to actually justify why they are charging it. Yeah. And then the issue of construction on wetlands. I'm happy my colleagues are here from EMA. We constantly have site visits with EMA where we try to address these issues of construction on wetlands. And you're right, Chair, when people tamper with wetlands, automatically it has an impact on our groundwater resources and surface water resources. So maybe just to then also answer the question that was asked by the last honorable member, of our relationship with City of Harare. The issue firstly begins with people being allocated land on wetlands. So that's where we need maybe to come up with a committee or at least harmonization of our statutes, because you find a person gets clearance from City of Harare to develop on a wetland, whilst us and Emma are against it, and a person will be actually having authentic paperwork. So maybe there's need to realign our laws, our policies with City of Harare, Emma, and Upper Manyame. Maybe to even come up with a committee that just sits down to look at, these land applications. Each institution gives their comment to that effect, and then it is actioned accordingly.
But Madam, I would imagine that the areas that are considered wetlands in Harare are already well known. That the Upper Manyame sub-catchment area would simply write a letter to the City of Harare to say these areas, no permits for development should be issued.
Yes.
Why would you even need a committee to look at each allocation? It really should be set and cast in stone that these lands are off limits in terms of development.
They actually know, I'd like to believe so, because the wetlands are actually gazetted. So it's known. It's actually known, you're right. Yeah, these pieces of land are known. So it then baffles us to see people being allocated, land on such areas. So there's just that need to look at the issues at hand and see how best we can go about it. And then on the issue of disseminating information to our residents and how to justify why also people are being charged fees. So as an institution, we do awareness campaigns. Why we charge these monitoring fees? Like I said, we're parastatal and we're self-funded. So when we charge these levies, actually for domestic water use, these are just monitoring fees. For domestic use, it's $10 after every 3 months, roughly $3 per month. And we use this fund to do our monitoring activities, collecting water samples. We don't charge the water users. The monitoring network that I also mentioned, and the monitoring, collecting water levels, it also needs money to fund such operations. We also do awareness campaigns, it also needs funding. So that money is utilized for those activities, for constant engagement. Even as we are doing our inspections, every day we have a team that is in the field doing inspections, identifying illegal activities. And I just want to give an example. For example, if you have a bore on your property and then your neighbor starts abstracting water in bulk or selling water in bulk, if there are no institutions like Upper Manyame Sub-Catchment Council in place, whom are you going to report to? Because once a person starts moving water in bulk, your neighbor, automatically your bore is going to dry out. So we need these monitoring fees to help us to enforce the law in a nutshell. And then there was a question on I think our relationship with ZINWA. Okay. So according, ZINWA has its own act, the ZINWA Act, but the mandate for board is strictly lies with the catchment councils and sub-catchment councils. So maybe also people need to be educated with the law so that they do not get robbed of their hard-earned money. So for groundwater use, the permits are applied through your respective sub-catchment council, which then the permits are granted by your respective catchment council. And not ZINWA. ZINWA's mandate is mainly for water supply and maintaining large dams. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Christian, are you okay? Magwara?
No, we're okay.
Chair, you are Magwara.
Mr. Kangata, thank you very much, Honorable Chair and esteemed honorable members. I'll just give some of the initial responses, and my colleagues will also weigh in. I'll start off with the issue pertaining to wetlands. Mr. Chairman and esteemed honorable members, wetlands are very key in any environment set up, simply because of the ecological goods and services that we do get from those wetlands. And some of the services that we get from wetlands is all the rivers and the streams, wherever globally, they start from wetlands. So wetlands are first and foremost sources of rivers. They give us water. And what are these wetlands? We are simply basically looking at areas of land which are permanently or temporarily wet. You look at the level of wetness of a given piece of land. It could be wet probably 6 months, 7 months, or throughout the year. The second thing for you to identify a wetland, you look at pedology, or the type of soils. Wetlands are characterized by sort of blackish, loamy soils, which are sticky when wet and cracky when dry. You also go to the obligate species. There are certain water-loving species that you then find in wetlands. If you get an area, if you allocated a stand where there are reeds, at times you don't need the EMA. You should say no to such pieces of land. If you have tsanga, zilipo tsanga, it's water-loving. If you get mukute, it means the water table is very high. It's a wetland. So the service that we get in relation to the work that we discussing, it's water provisioning. We get water from our wetlands. If we protect our wetlands, that's automatically a sure case that the water in a given vicinity is provided for. Secondly, wetlands allow for the natural purification of all contaminated water in any scenario. But if you turn the wetlands into a concrete jungle, the natural purification falls away because we have changed the area into a concrete jungle. When it rains, it hits on the tarmac and concrete, straight it goes to our water bodies, contaminated as is, because there has not been natural purification. If only we had natural purification, it means when the water gets to Lake Chiwero, it will be naturally purified, and then we add a few chemicals and so on and so forth. And for the city of Harare, the issue pertaining to wetland invasion, I would put it that way. It started probably about 12, 15 years back, 2007, 2009. In the past, these wetlands that we have in the city of Harare were left out as open spaces, breathing spaces for the city. They were actually lungs for the city to breathe, or green zones. But around 2008, there was a strategic invasion, mainly by malls, housing developments, and so on and so forth. And because we then said, as EMA, in terms of the Environmental Management Act, Chapter 2027, Section 113, it's on the protection of wetlands. We then moved in 2021 to come up with the Wetland Master Plan for the whole country, demarcating all the wetlands. And further to that, we now have a 2021 wetlands policy. We also have a wetland management guideline. And further to that, we have also gazetted ecological sensitive wetlands, which are no-go areas, where the minister, in terms of the law, will impose limitations. One, on the type of development, if ever it will be undertaken. Two, scale or magnitude of development. And three, the types of technologies to be employed. So there are limitations that the minister would then put in place, all in a bid to protect the wetlands. Now we have the proper legislative and policy backing, though we moved in a bit late, because it's 2021, where we had the master plan, the policy, as well as the management guidelines. So anyone who then wants to have a housing development, which we then, as EMA, would say, these are the do's and don'ts. What we have done, we have shared all the necessary legislative and policy guidelines to the planning authorities. Because mind you, EMA is not a planning authority, it's not a land authority. The land authority are the local authorities. That's one, because they own land. Secondly, we also have we also have state land. the Department of Spatial Planning, their own land. So we have shared with them all the pieces of policy guidelines for them to then say, if ever anyone wants to have a development, a proposed development, and that piece of, we are not accepting such issues. But we are working on our laws, because our laws, if one is to build on a wetland, from the EMA side, our laws are very silent in terms of demolition. We will then push the local authority to use its quantity are compromised. And wetlands also absorb excess water when there are floods. That's why you have those people who live in wetlands, because they've changed the structure. Usually you have flash floods. Instead of the wetlands playing its role to absorb excess water and attenuate or control floods. So this is just the background pertaining to the wetlands. And as EMA, we do not allow people to build in wetlands. But the dynamics that I've talked about is we are on the other end, but the planning authorities, the people who have the land bank in the country, are the local authority. In this particular case, the city of Harare and the spatial planning, they would have a piece of land. But to us, we are saying if it is a wetland, and I'm 99% sure that in Harare, we no longer have these stands that people at times advertise. They are actually those open spaces that were meant to be breathing spaces, which also happen to be wetlands. And it's not a proper investment to build in these wetlands. If you move in some of the areas, the perimeter walls, they also tend to follow the underground movement of the water. Time and again, you need to repair the perimeter Jura walls, because they will be following the water levels. And the foundations and below is cracking and so on and so forth. It becomes difficult also to manage this site. So as people from the various constituencies, as honorable members, please encourage people to do due diligence whenever they want to undertake a development, so that it's away from these wetlands, so that we continue getting water and the investments are proper investments. And there was a question pertaining to whether we are just a regulator or we come in to assist. Primarily, we are a regulator. Just like the police, they would issue out tickets, they would also arrest perpetrators, those violating the law, whether the people have money or do not have money, or whether they have other livelihood options or not. Police are also livelihood options because they don't do that, because primarily they are regulators. But when EMA was then put in place, there was a provision for the Environment Fund, Honorable. The Environment Fund was then to allow EMA to undertake one of its functions in terms of Section 10 of the Environmental Management Act, subsection 12, to undertake any works deemed necessary or desirable for the protection or management of the environment, where it appears to be in public interest or where, in its opinion, an appropriate authority has neglected to do so. EMA is then supposed to come in. How does EMA come in that vein? It's through now using the funds that were supposed to have been deposited in the Environment Fund. In terms of Section 42 of the Environmental Management Act, one of those sure and predictable sources of funding is the carbon tax. It was supposed to fund the environmental fund, so that when we see that things are not moving in a certain area, we'll then simply use the funds to make appropriate measures for the benefit of the citizens and the people in a given vicinity. But unfortunately, Treasury, it will be a discussion for another time, Treasury took this as a predictable source of funding, and it's not remitting to EMA. So the Environment Fund only exists in the Act, but it's hollow. The fund is not full.
If they were remitting, how much would you have by now?
Can someone do a quick one? A quick calculation in terms of the carbon tax, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Carbon tax is charged per liter of fuel. It's 3 cents per every liter. So you can imagine in terms of the volumes, even when I like to Google the money, the carbon tax that is posted by Zimra, it runs into billions of zigs. So that would move us in this direction. For those who are here in Harare, we have tried a bit in terms of treasury support, where we bought 2 refuse compactors. The refuse compactors that we bought as EMA was to assist the local authorities. For instance, would move into Manyame and then assist the Manyame RDC for 2-3 days. We know that will be done. We go to Buera, we go to Chifu, we go to Kenmo, we go throughout. But we couldn't deploy to those small towns, because when we deployed them to the city of Harare in April 2023, because of the challenges of waste management in Harare, they are stuck within the city of Harare, where we're using them, we are servicing the vehicles, we are also fueling the vehicle. So the environment fund, if it's funded or resourced, it would allow us now to move in and do remedial works.
I'm sorry to interject, but it's a very interesting point which I think we will need to look into. Especially if there's a provision by law, statutory, that the carbon tax must go to the environment fund. The fact that it is not going is very problematic. And I think we need to investigate further and understand why, because you really could be going in to fix the infrastructure in the city of Harare, which is impacting on the supply of water to Glenview in the first instance, because that's the reason we are seated here and other parts of the capital city. It's a very important and interesting point. So if you have any more information specifically that you can share about the fund, please share with the committee, and then we can take it up with the Ministry of Finance and other relevant authorities.
Thank you, Chair. We'll do that. And then in terms of the polluted water bodies who then comes in, it's mainly we use a principle called the polluter pays principle. Whoever pollutes is supposed to then pay for the consequences. And in this particular case, when you look at water pollution prohibition, is pay the cost of removal of any poison, toxic, noxious or obstructing matter that one would have deposited in a water body. That's why you find with the local authority, with the Harare city, our relationship is not sour. It's a very amicable relationship, but we remind them, because they are the polluters. So we need to fine the polluters, because it's a polluter pays principle. Whosoever pollutes is also supposed at law to pay for the consequences. I think Honorable Chair, allow me to probably have my colleagues come in and weigh in if I've left anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really would like to thank you. Unfortunately, we have overrun our time. Honorable members have to go for lunch because they have to be in the House at 2 o'clock. But I also know that you must have lunch. But the fact that you have extended your time and sharing these insights is obviously recognition of how much you are passionate about the work that you do. Allow me to thank you, Mr. Kangata, and your team for the contributions that you have made in response to the petition we received from the Combined Harare Residents Association. And Mrs. Matsaila, we should thank you very much for your eloquence in terms of the responsibilities of the Upper Manyame